Is that yes. What your name?
Yes. I don't even like to be a part of it.
All right. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the presentation. Again, thank you all for your patience while we try to capture the names of our attendees online. I'm going to turn the floor over to Jose and Alex, who will take you through a presentation.
I've been on this. We can listen to it.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Alex Morris. I'm the Chief of Planning, Design, and Construction at the DC Housing Authority. And our brief presentation tonight is to talk about the Rental Assistance Demonstration Project, or RAD, and how it applies to Judiciary House. First of all, a statement about our mission. What we strive to do every day is to preserve, manage, and develop quality, affordable housing for extremely low through moderate income households, foster sustainable communities, and cultivate human capital opportunities for residents to improve lives. On our agenda tonight, we're going to first of all, introduce ourselves as we go into the agenda. I'm going to introduce a few other staff members to talk about other aspects of this program. We're going to talk about why we're proposing to use RAD at Judiciary House and give you facts about the RAD program. We're going to give you an overview of what's going on at Judiciary House and what we're already doing. We're going to talk about other planned RAD transactions of other DCHA properties, talk about resident engagement, introduce the mobility team, and provide updates on the HCVP team, introduce the Office of Resident Services, and discuss issues surrounding COVID-19, and then talk about next steps. So first of all, why would we apply for RAD for Judiciary House? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, the federal government does not provide enough stable funding year to year for us to make improvements that residents of public housing deserve with the public housing program. The money we get from HUD every year from the public housing program has declined roughly 2 to 3% over the last 20 years, not accounting for inflation. Number two, RAD is an option to obtain more sustainable funding for public housing authorities and improve public housing properties by converting to Section 8, or the Housing Choice Voucher Program, from the current funding stream that funds public housing, which is called Section 9. And just a reminder, DCHA is estimating that its capital needs to date are about $2.5 billion. RAD is a HUD-funded program, and that allows DCHA to fund major building improvements and stabilize federal funding for the future, with no resident displacement, no loss of housing benefits, and no change in rent calculation. You will be paying 30% of your adjusted gross income under RAD. The only difference would be is if you are someone who is paying currently a flat rent or a ceiling rent, then your rent would be adjusted over a period of years up to a 30% of income rent. So RAD stands for the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program. It's a HUD program. It was founded in 2012, so it's 8 years old. HUD crafted this federal program as a response to fill the growing gap between decreasing federal funding and increasing capital needs of public housing. Because federal funding is not often enough to provide for the high upkeep costs of existing properties, RAD allows a public housing authority to move away from what's called the annual contributions contract, which is the contract under public housing that helps us subsidize our operations and capital needs, to Section 8, Housing Choice Voucher Program assistance. This makes it possible for us to obtain funding from private and alternative sources to add to the funding we already get from HUD to improve the capital needs of our buildings. RAD allows the Public Housing Authority to work with partners who want to invest in building improvements. This could give DCHA the opportunity to borrow money for improvements, to seek bond issuance for improvements, to work with philanthropic partners, people willing to give us money as donations, and to take on development partners or investors to help us stabilize and improve properties. What are the things that DCHA can do with RAD? The scope of work can include renovations to apartments, fixing kitchens, bathrooms, and finishes, updating outdated building systems like electrical, plumbing, fire, and mechanical systems, doing energy efficiency improvements, installing new windows, roofs, and building exterior improvements, enhancing community spaces, and improving building security. Now, at Judiciary House, we're already making improvements. There already is work underway, and there's further work planned. But with the RAD program, we can raise additional funds in future years to do additional improvements. And we're interested in your feedback as a resident on what else we can do. And I'll talk a little bit about what we're already doing just to start that conversation. And then we can talk about in the Q&A period what else you would like to see us do in the future to improve Judiciary House. So what other features of RAD that are I think very beneficial are RAD is good for renovation. So we're not talking about changing Judiciary House, changing the number of units or anything. We're talking about renovating the building and having the same number of apartments in the same mix that's currently there. And we do phased construction to minimize moves. And so as we do work on the units, and we're going to talk about this more later in the presentation, we do need to move people out of units where we're doing major renovations. But all of the moves that we're anticipating at this time are all within the Judiciary House building. We are making units ready for people moving